Time now for the Sunday Talk, and tonight, the politics of Clinton versus Trump. The American primary season is far from over, but after a week of wins, the possible battle to come is taking shape. The two contenders with the clearest paths to the White House are Democrat Hillary Clinton and Republican Donald Trump. And after months of battling rivals within their own parties, they are finally setting their sights on each other. Trump's first attack ad on Clinton is simple. The world is dangerous. And she's, well, this.
Punch him in the face.
Clinton's attack ad on Trump paints his campaign as an ugly spectacle of hate and division.
He's encouraging violence and chaos.
If these are the warriors for the White House, the battle plans are already clear. Clinton's been in politics for decades. Trump will savage her as a dishonest insider.
You notice that Hillary's only focused on me? The last person she wants to be running against is Trump.
Clinton will emphasize her experience. Meanwhile, she'll hammer Trump as a reality TV demagogue, untested, unqualified, dangerous.
Our commander-in-chief has to be able to defend our country, not embarrass it.
Look forward to seeing you in the White House.
Trump will say he's the outsider who can bring down a corrupt establishment.
You have the establishment, they don't know what they're doing.
He'll sink low, try to belittle her.
I'm a better person than Hillary.
She got schlonged, she lost.
Hillary will hit him on issues.
We're going to have a very vigorous general election if I'm the nominee.
But polls show Trump and Clinton are both disliked by more than half of the general public. With support this brittle, any strategy is a gamble. And I'm joined now by our panelists. Tasha Keraden is a columnist with the National Post and iPolitics. Supriya Dwivedi is a political strategist and commentator. And Lenny McAllister is a Republican commentator and radio host. He's joining us from Pittsburgh tonight. Welcome, everybody. Good to be here. Thanks. Lenny, I want to start with you. Before we get to this Clinton versus Trump battle, Trump first has to win the fight within his own party. Is there anything that could stop him at this point from winning the nomination?
Well, right now, what could stop him is a combination of Ted Cruz and John Kasich continuing to gather up wins and basically stop Donald Trump from getting the magical number of 1,237 delegates. If he can't win the nomination on the first round of voting in Cleveland in July, he's probably not going to get the nomination because the Republican establishment, I don't think, is going to allow him to win the nomination after round 2, round 3, round 4 of voting. He must get 1,237 in order to win. And right now, with John Kasich winning Ohio and Ted Cruz being favored in other states coming up on Tuesday, it looks as though all three of the remaining candidates won't get to that magic mark of 1,237.
All right, if it does end up being a Trump-Clinton race for the White House, I want to talk about changes that we can expect to see. And first of all, let's start with Trump's campaigning style. Tasha?
Well, I think that Donald Trump has played to all the right notes that he thinks he needs to win the nomination, and chiefly by bringing in independents to the party. He's bringing in new voters by appealing to being the outside anti-establishment candidate. But if he does take the nomination, he will also have to secure Republican voters, and I think he will move a bit more to the center in terms of policies, perhaps mitigating them a little bit. But until he gets the nomination, I don't think he will, because I think that his key appeal lies in being the non-establishment candidate.
Yeah, I agree with that largely. The one thing that I also will say is that I think Trump's going to have to soften his tone. He's going to have to be a lot less bombastic.
But isn't that his appeal?
It is, but his appeal ultimately, I think, is his authenticity. And, you know, as we've seen before, we shouldn't be, well, you know, or what is perceived to be his authenticity, I should say. I can hear Lenny laughing in my ear. That's why, yeah.
I love it too.
Yeah. So I think he has a lot of wiggle room to be able to pivot. A few weeks ago, we saw in a debate, everybody was maligning Planned Parenthood on stage, and he actually pointed out the true fact that Planned Parenthood does a lot of cervical cancer screenings and mammograms, and abortions are a very small percentage of what they do. And so I think we're seeing him already start to pivot to a general and try and garner at least, you know, some support amongst independent and swing women voters.
Lenny, I see you shaking your head.
He's not pivoting to any place. He doesn't really have any policy positions. That's been one of the critiques of him this whole time, is the fact that when you ask him for specifics, he talks about a wall, he rambles on some more. He doesn't say anything very detailed. And so he goes on, and then he'll go into Lion Ted and Little Markio and Low Energy Jeb. That's all he's been doing. If you want specifics from Donald, he can specifically tell you how he's going to insult somebody. Other than that, he hasn't had any policy positions that you can look at and really break down. And whether it's on taxes, he's been a little bit all over the place. Planned Parenthood is something that he's been doing. This is not something that's been a pivot. He's not going to pivot to the center. He's going to be all over the place. It's the beauty of his political positions, are the fact that he's not going from the right to the center. He's been all over the place. He's been spaghetti splashed up against the wall to see what will stick. He'll continue to throw spaghetti up against the wall, and it will look like the hot mess that we've been hearing from him at these rallies and on the debate stage.
So maybe then he doesn't need to change his style, is what Lenny's saying, because it's working for him.
Well, I think it's working for him to the point where he can get the nomination. I don't know if it will work in a general election. When he's up against Hillary Clinton, she is going to tack to the left. I think she's already tacked to the left quite a bit, and that's because of Bernie Sanders. And so I think that for him, he'll say, I am the reasonable person, believe it or not, in this conversation. And on things, for example, like trade, that's where I disagree with Lenny. I think he has actually staked out a very protectionist position on trade. Would he maintain that in a general election? Is that where he would want to go? I'm not sure if that would play so well outside of the angry base that he's needed to win the nomination, for example.
Supriya, what about Hillary Clinton's campaign style? What's she going to need to do if she is running for the White House?
Well, as Tasha pointed out, I think she has tacked leftward, and that's something she's going to have to do to try and garner up a lot of those disaffected Sanders voters. But I think primarily what we're going to see in her communication style is she's going to ditch this whole I'm with her campaign and make it more about the voters. I think if Donald Trump is the nominee, she's going to start using her message points as Donald Trump being a bully and that he needs to be stopped. And he can only be stopped if they're, if everybody's united together against him. And I think, we saw that with most successful campaigns make it about the voters. Barack Obama had, yes, we can. And Hillary Clinton's message, up to this point, has been, I'm the most qualified person, so you should be electing me.
I think the big question here, too, is just how personal are these campaigns going to get? Oh, you're all laughing. Who wants to jump into that one first? Lenny?
Yeah, it's going to be very personal. I mean, that's how Donald Trump has won to this point of time, is being very personal. And I mean, Republicans can't stand Hillary Clinton, and they have a very strange dilemma here that you usually don't see. We really, 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 really don't want this person to be our nominee. We don't like this guy, but we really, really, really can't stand Hillary Clinton. We haven't been able to stand her since the 1990s. So now Republicans are looking and saying, okay, do we hate our nominee more than we hate Hillary Clinton? What would we be able to tolerate? And so the dynamic will be, it'll be a very personal race. You'll see outside money making it personal. You'll see the candidates making it personal, particularly Donald Trump. And again, we run a risk of losing what the Republican brand might be moving forward from 2016, what the American presidency is going to be remembered as and viewed as moving forward from 2016. We may have a low point in the American presidency that we haven't seen since 1974. And if you remember, that was with the disgrace of Richard Nixon. So this is what's at risk right now, because you have two unlikable candidates and one possibly being a major party nominee that is won by way of some of the most vitriolic rhetoric that we've seen in decades.
Well, I think Lenny makes an interesting point, because the Nixon presidency was a low point in terms of trust of the government. And I think what we're seeing again here in this, the fact that Trump and Sanders, both of them are popular, is that people do not trust the U.S. government. People are fed up. And Clinton incarnates the establishment government. Her entire life, her career in government is a very big point that she says is important to elect her. But it's also a big negative, because when you ask Trump voters why they like him, they say he says what he thinks, and he can't be bought. And I think that's where the negative campaigning he's going to do against her is that she can, and she will be beholden to special interests.
And it's the interesting, can I say this real quick? The interesting thing about her being the embodiment of the establishment is the fact that it played against her 8 years ago. Who was the outsider 8 years ago going against the establishment candidate in Clinton? It was a guy by the name of Barack Obama, funny Muslim name from Chicago that nobody had heard about until 2004, yet because she was the establishment and people wanted an outsider, here he came, and sure enough, yes, he did. He's a two-term president now.
All right, let's talk about the male-female dynamic of this possible matchup. That could definitely change, I'm guessing, some of the language around what we're hearing so far. It's fair to say that Donald Trump's comments, some comments around women so far have been outrageous. Is he going to have to pull back? Is he going to have to pull back on that?
I don't think he will. I think that's part of his appeal, and I think part of Hillary Clinton's, one of her, I guess, weaker points is that people don't necessarily, people dislike her to the point that if you would be offended by somebody saying something sexist about another female candidate, with Hillary Clinton, it kind of, you will let it go because you just dislike her that much. And I think Donald Trump knows that, and I think the Republicans know that. So I think there's a certain amount of leeway around Clinton that other female candidates don't necessarily have.
Yeah, the barking dog ad that you showed before is, I mean, it's a very harsh ad, but that's actually something she did on stage. Women reading out quotes about Donald Trump and the nasty things he said about women on the Howard Stern campaign is the attack ad on the other side. And I don't find it nearly as effective, strangely enough, even as a woman, and in part because of what you said, because I don't find Hillary Clinton an appealing politician, never mind that she's female.
Also, just pointing out that it was her staffer, that's her staffers to blame, that they allowed
her to do
bark
that?
on
Yeah,
stage.
no,
there are certain things you just never let your candidate do. Never let them wear protective gear. Never let them make animal sounds. And
Never
never
put
let
them
them eat hot dogs.
on a Sea-Doo?
And never put them on a Sea-Doo.
Or a hairnet, yeah.
But hold on, but Hillary Clinton is not a good candidate. Case in point, you look at the town hall that we had this
Come on. She's a fine candidate.
But we're talking about the male versus female dynamic in the campaign style.
But I understand, but she makes it easy to attack her despite being in politics for decades. Now, for example, go back to the town hall forum where she talked about there will be certain coal mines that will shut down when she becomes president. These are things you don't want to say when you need Appalachia and you need the Rust Belt in order to win. So when you say things like that after being involved in politics for decades, it only raises the negatives about Hillary Clinton that much more. Therefore, when you have an ad where she's barking and you're trying to dog whistle the B-I-T you-know-what word that's often said about her, most people, rather than saying, I can't believe Donald Trump went there again, they kind of say, yeah, it's Hillary Clinton. And that's what's problematic for her. We should all be offended because it can come across as being extremely sexist and being that dog whistle. But again, back to the lady's point, because it's Hillary Clinton, both of the ladies are correct, we don't do it as much as we perhaps should do it.
In our final moments, anybody want to weigh in on possible running mates? Tasha?
You know what? Chris Christie should get it just for that. Just for standing there and being the good wife on the debate night, on the primaries night, that Super Tuesday. Yeah, he should get it. Speaking of the good wife,
I think Tim Kaine would be an interesting choice for Hillary Clinton. Virginia is a swing state. He's a former governor there. He's endorsed her in the past and speaks highly of her. Elizabeth Warren would be interesting for her too if she's going to tack leftward. Although the optics of an all-female ticket, I think, are still unfortunately not that great.
Lenny?
I'm going to go with the odd couple on the Republican side to balance the high-energy Donald Trump and go with the low-energy Jeb Bush. It would be fascinating to see them as a ticket for a couple of months going into November.
Now, these are all races I would definitely watch. Tasha, Supriya, and Lenny, thanks for being here tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you. God bless.